Okay, let's dive right into this mind-blowing explainer. If you're like, well, pretty much everyone, you probably woke up this morning, jumped in the shower, washed your hair, maybe swiped on some deodorant, put on some lotion or makeup, and you didn't think twice about it, right? We just kind of assume that because these things are sitting on store shelves, they've been rigorously tested and proven totally safe. Well, prepare to have those expectations completely shattered, because the reality of our morning routines is way more complicated, and honestly, significantly more toxic than that pristine marketing wants us to believe. 100. That's a massive number, right? And that is the average amount of individual synthetic chemicals that we slather, spritz, and just rub all over our bodies every single morning, literally before we even sit down for breakfast. No joke. We are essentially marinating in these complex chemical cocktails day in and day out. It's like a slow cooker recipe of synthetics, and we usually do it without a second thought about how all these compounds are interacting with our biology over decades of continuous use. I mean, just imagine zooming in on a single drop of your daily lotion, or looking right between the bristles of your absolute favorite makeup brush. The sheer volume of synthetic ingredients just hiding in plain sight, it's staggering. To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at this absolutely fascinating clinical body burden experiment that was featured in the documentary Toxic Beauty. A medical student named Mimi Nguyen was actually monitored while using her standard daily routine, which consisted of over 27 personal care products. The lab testing of her blood and urine showed rapid, massive fluctuations in systemic concentrations of harmful chemicals. It literally proved just how quickly these compounds are absorbed straight through our skin and accumulate in human tissue. It's wild. Now, I want you to watch the screen for a second and compare that to this huge number, 1,300. That is the amount of harmful chemicals and ingredients that have been completely banned from use in cosmetics over in the European Union. The EU takes a super precautionary approach because they recognize that thousands of these ingredients pose severe risks, things like cancer, genetic mutation, or reproductive harm. But over in the United States, watch this gap widen as that number drops to a shocking 11. Yeah, historically, just 11 ingredients have been restricted or banned from cosmetics by the US FDA. It's just a staggering, mind-blowing disparity that honestly completely changes how you're going to view that bottle of shampoo sitting in your shower right now. Section 1, EU versus US rules. Let's look at the massive gap between these two global systems. So how can two modern regions have such insanely different standards? Well, the core difference really comes down to their fundamental regulatory philosophy. See, the EU demands strict proof of safety before a product ever hits the shelf. Someone called a responsible person actually has to compile this massive product information file and prove the formula is safe. The US, on the other hand, it's historically operated as a reactive, post-market Wild West. Manufacturers just haven't needed pre-market approval. They could essentially just put products on the shelves and only face consequences if major issues were reported after the fact.
Now, to be fair, the landscape is shifting a bit. Back in 2022, the U.S. finally tried to catch up by passing the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act, or MACRA, and this was a big deal, the first major overhaul of U.S. cosmetics law in over 80 years. It's definitely an important step. It introduces mandatory facility registration and actually requires companies to report serious adverse health events to the FDA. But, and this is a big but, MACRA still operates after the fact. It still doesn't require that strict pre-market approval or the sweeping ingredient bans that the European Union mandates.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we are exposing ourselves to without those pre-market safety nets. We're kind of left navigating a chemical minefield. Take a look at parabens and phthalates. These are what we call endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs. They actually mimic or block your body's natural hormones, which can alter your physiological systems at incredibly low doses. We're talking about substances directly linked to reproductive issues and thyroid dysfunction. Then you've got formaldehyde releasers hiding in hair treatments, which are literally known human carcinogens. And let's not forget heavy metals like lead and cadmium lurking in color cosmetics, carrying serious risks of neurotoxicity. Now, we really have to ground this science in human reality because this toxic burden, it doesn't affect everyone equally. It disproportionately impacts vulnerable populations and occupational workers. Think about professional salon workers who are very often immigrant women and women of color. They are inhaling aerosolized phthalates and volatile organic compounds for 8 to 10 hours a day. That leads to a 47-fold higher risk of severe skin allergies and respiratory illnesses. And this crisis hits communities of color incredibly hard. Women of color face severe, disproportionate risks from products like toxic hair relaxers. Studies have repeatedly linked these specific products to higher rates of hormone-related disorders and uterine fibroids in Black women. Section 2. The clean washing trap. Let's pivot for a second and look at how the beauty industry actually markets these products. So you might be wondering, if these chemicals are that harmful, how on earth do companies keep getting us to buy them? Well, just look at the deceptive shimmer of this cream right here. The cosmetics industry puts on an absolute masterclass in aesthetics. The marketing is pristine, the packaging is beautifully minimalist with, little green leaves and earthy tones, but the ugly hidden truth inside the bottle often completely contradicts what's printed on the label. This highly deceptive tactic is known as clean washing. See, because the cosmetic industry lacks standardized, legally binding definitions for buzzwords like clean, natural, or non-toxic, marketers can basically slap those words on almost anything. I mean, you could theoretically have a product absolutely packed with hormone-disrupting preservatives, but if you put it in a cute, recycled brown paper box and call it botanical, millions of consumers are going to buy it thinking they're making a totally safe choice. And here is the ultimate counterintuitive trap of it all. Clean washing relies on this assumption we all make that natural always means safe and synthetic always means toxic. But guys, that is scientifically false. I mean, think about it. Arsenic and lead are 100% natural, and they are incredibly poisonous. Meanwhile, there are actually a lot of synthetic ingredients, like certain really well-researched preservatives, that are thoroughly tested, completely non-toxic, and absolutely vital to stop deadly mold and bacteria from just, growing right there in your face cream. Section 3, the fragrance loophole. Let's keep this investigative energy going and dive right into how companies can actually legally hide these chemicals. So the crucial point is, how do companies legally hide these harmful synthetic chemicals? Well, under US law, a product scent is actually considered a proprietary trade secret. This is known as the fragrance loophole. What this means is a company literally does not have to disclose the individual chemicals that make up that scent. They can just print the word fragrance or parfum on the back of the bottle. And that single word acts like a legal Trojan horse, hiding hundreds of undisclosed synthetic chemicals, including those highly toxic phthalates and endocrine disruptors we talked about, right there in plain sight on the ingredient list. And the consequences of these hidden risks in cosmetics have led to some major legal reckonings over the years. A primary example here is the decades of litigation surrounding cosmetic talcum powder. Now, talc is a naturally occurring mineral used to absorb moisture, but it's frequently mined in close geological proximity to asbestos, which is a known carcinogen. Over the past decade, tens of thousands of lawsuits have been filed against companies like Johnson & Johnson. These suits objectively report claims that historical asbestos contamination in talc products has been directly linked to cases of ovarian cancer in long-term users. Section 4, protecting your health. Okay, let's shift gears from the shocking problems to some real actionable solutions. Now, you might be looking at your own bathroom cabinet with a little bit of dread right now. But listen, you absolutely have the power to take back control here. You don't just have to be scared. Once you understand the regulatory gaps and those sneaky marketing tricks, you can change your purchasing behaviors and drastically reduce your chemical body burden. First off, simply reduce your cumulative exposure by simplifying your routine. Honestly, you probably don't need 27 products a day. Second, actively choose fragrance-free formulations. That is for sure the easiest way to avoid those hidden EDCs. Third, stop trusting marketing claims and start seeking out rigorous third-party certifications like EWG Verified or Made Safe. And finally, support beauty justice initiatives that advocate for safer formulations for everyone, especially for the occupational workers and communities of color who face the absolute highest risks. Let's move to exactly how you can build your defense, because you can also use technology to slice right through all that clean washing. You literally have the tools in your pocket. You can use the EWG Skin Deep database to look up the exact toxicity ratings of over 80,000 products. If you're a big online shopper, install the Clearia browser extension. It'll actually flag toxic ingredients in your cart before you even hit buy. If you're physically in the store, download the Yuka app so you can scan barcodes for an instant safety score right there in the aisle. And for vetted, safe, and culturally relevant products, definitely consult the Non-Toxic Black Beauty database. It's an incredible resource. So, we've covered a massive amount of ground today, right? From the wild regulatory gaps between the US and the EU, to the deceptive tactics of clean washing, all the way to the very real physiological impacts of the products we use every single day. So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you walk into your bathroom tomorrow morning. Next time you reach for that beautifully packaged, allegedly clean beauty bottle, what exactly are you putting on your skin?